Initialize dampeners. Cut into feed. Begin transmission.
This program is intended for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Bill, and you are watching Late Night on Weird Fantastic Toy Adventures. I hope everyone's had a good night. I mean, come over here to the comments, see who all has showed up tonight. Johnny Sorensen came in a little early tonight. Good to see you, Johnny. We have Mr. Eldor from Masterversal Toy Hunter here. Good to see you, sir. George Valentine stopping in to say hi. Good to see you. The Toy Mama is here. Good to see you, sweetie. The Joneser has showed up as well. He will be with us here shortly. And my guest tonight is also down there in the chat saying hello to folks. There's Shiny Plastic People, Mr. Chris. And I guess I better bring Joneser on in. So let's intro Joneser right quick.
What's up, everybody? It's Joneser, your favorite comic book guy. So let's do this!
What's up, everybody? How's everybody this fantastic Friday night?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, sir.
Absolutely. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I just ordered a new coffee mug there.
Looks like
got my weird, fantastic toy adventure mug coming. So I'll probably get that in time for my birthday.
Good deal, man.
I just found out a little bit ago that my birthday is almost the same day as yours. What a weird coinkydink that is. But yeah, y'all want to buy some merch? Hit that up. Like Joneser got his coming.
Absolutely. Appreciate that, guys. And look, let's go ahead and get this on out of the way. I have to do all the begging that I do on the show. If you guys are loving this content, I need likes, I need shares, I need subscribers, I need notification bells hit. I need all that good stuff so that the channel can thrive. I also have memberships are open. And they're pretty cheap. I've got one member so far, but you get little perks with membership. I've also got a Patreon available. All these links are in the description. You can go over to Patreon and be a Patreon member of mine, get some cool stuff. Bjorn Jorgensen says he sold a couple of Nintendo Switches today. And Bjorn had contacted me earlier and said he wasn't going to make it tonight. I hope everything turned out to be okay on that one. Bjorn, you let me know privately, and because I want to be there for you, my friend. And tonight's show is basically going to be about creator burnout. Jones, or you and I both have suffered that, and I think you're suffering it as we speak. So we're going to have a lot going on with that. We're going to have Chris come in here and talk to us about. He was telling me earlier today that he's having a little bit of that himself, and we're all going to get together and just kind of see if we can't help one another on that note. And so, Studio, I see you down there, hon. If you want to come on later on tonight, you can be more than happy to. If you want to just come on after the show and chat with us, you certainly are welcome. I see you down there coming in and out. I know John from Figuratively Speaking, he may be able to join us a little later on tonight as well. Sir Clifden is not going to be here, by the way. He's got to clean up his toy room a little bit and move in some stuff. So he's got that going on. But I want everybody to get a quick shout out here to Chris from Shining Plastic People, who's joining us.
Wow, hearing my own theme there makes me want to like launch immediately into my intro. Point at things and.
Well, I warned you. I intro everybody with their theme music and variations of what they do, because I just feel like it's like the old Carson show. Whenever somebody would come on, Doc Severinsen would play their theme music.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me, Bill Joneser. Pleasure to be here and actually interact with you guys for the first time. This is very cool.
No, it's nice.
I love having guests. I love having guests on the show. I love interaction. Some people are loners. They like to do everything by themselves, or they'll schedule a guest every once in a while. Me, on the other hand, I have a co-host, and I like to get guests on the show. I like to bring people on the show that maybe my listeners have not met before, and get a chance to plug their channel and get some new members for you that may not be aware of you. So tell us a little bit about your channel and what you do over there.
Well, I buy things and show them off on YouTube, so my wife thinks that it's not just me hoarding things. Mostly DC, some wrestling stuff, anything that catches my eyes that's shiny. Shiny plastic people. But right now, we've been doing a weekly Ahsoka after show on Thursdays with a guest, which is really cool because I don't use StreamYard, so it's been an adventure in figuring things out. But yeah, so just hang out, like things.
Well, talking about the technical issues of that, I was talking to Joneser about. He's been experimenting with streaming directly through OBS.
That's how I do it.
There is a way. Yeah, there is a way to bring someone in OBS, but you have to have them Skype in to you, and then you bring them in through the Skype. And I think there's a plug-in that helps you to do that.
There's NDI for that, but I use a third-party website that people can join in, like StreamYard. It gives everybody a video feed, and then you can plug that in as a browser URL into OBS and treats it just like a website, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's the way Dave does that over at Dave's Dimension, I believe.
Yeah, the irony is I'm like, oh yeah, StreamYard can do all this really cool stuff, and it's neat. Or not StreamYard, OBS, but I just make it look like StreamYard at the end of the day.
And you probably go ahead, Jones. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, it was like what we were talking about earlier, Bill. The StreamYard is a little more easy to use or more intuitive, whereas OBS can be kind of frustrating. You got to kind of figure it out yourself. It doesn't have those little tools that StreamYard has that kind of hold your hand.
Yeah. And well, I'm willing to pay $25 to make it easier on myself.
Right. I've never been known to do anything the easy way, so I'm beating my head in with OBS right now.
You know, I need that $25 for an
one-
action figure. So
Well, I've got enough Patreon members. Thank you, Patreons, by the way, that they keep my subscriptions paid for at least, and then that's what it's all about, folks. If you want to be a channel member or a patron, I appreciate it. Know that your money is going directly into this channel. I'm not buying toys with it, and I'm not going on spending sprees with it. I'm putting it right back into where it belongs. And Radical Toys Adam is with us. Let me catch up on the chat. Bjorn says he's going to lurk around there tonight. Be careful, folks. If he has to roar and be majestic, you know he will. Susudio is here with us. And she was telling me that her Verizon is acting up. So, yeah, being kind of weird. So, maybe it's because she's an unofficial weirdo. That's what the membership, one of my membership tiers is weirdos based upon Bill Campbell's model kits, if you're aware of that. And Radical Toys is playing around with his girlfriend there, I would suppose. So that's what they're up to. And what's Gojitron saying here? Gojitron says, I've heard that it's better to burn out than fade away. Yeah.
Wonder, gleaming, gliding, gloating. All right.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Everybody else saying hey to each other. That gets the chat caught up. So, Chris, you were telling me earlier tonight that you've been suffering a little bit of burnout there on your show. Tell us what that's all about, man.
well, you know, part of it, and I've been open about this over times on my channel, is part of it's just mental health. You know, when you don't feel great about yourself, trying to create something is also really hard. I know I've probably shot 4 or 5 or 6 different 10-minute videos that I've just sit on my hard drive and do nothing. You know, so that's an advantage of doing live, because it's too late. It's happened. And then every once in a while you get a crazy idea, like I'm going to do this thing, and you start building intros and layouts, and you do it, and then you're like, ha ha, I'm ready, and just never happens.
I can feel that. I feel that in my soul, man.
Yeah.
I've got the best laid plans or the half done projects or I feel you there. And I do think that you're right with the point that mental health has a lot to do with it. If you don't feel like doing it or don't feel good, or you're not, we're our own worst critics. So we might be overly critical of what we're doing, and then decided maybe it'd be better not done.
Honestly, it's half the reason I probably live stream is so I don't have to watch myself in the editor.
I do it because I'm a lazy bastard. But
There is that.
the other thing is, you talking about mental health. I have a little problem that I deal with occasionally. Besides just a little bit of anxiety, I have what's called imposter syndrome, and I'm sure that all creators, especially the intelligent ones, like the people in my chat and the people here as guests on my show and co-hosting, we overthink things, and then we start thinking, oh, I'm not really as good as everybody else, and I'm just an imposter. And if I screw up, I'm going to expose myself to everyone for the fraud that I really am. And when in reality, you're not all of that. You're making that shit up in your mind.
Oh, absolutely. I know. Even just I have a completely different on-screen personality than every day. The minute that theme hits, and it's time to go, out comes, hey, you guys. And that's. I'm kind of shuffle around, look at my feet when no one's looking.
Right, and that we all suffer from that as well. And you were talking about mental health. Are you aware of Largo and Largo's Lair?
I'm familiar with. I haven't actually watched much of his content at all.
Well, if you don't watch any of his content, I would suggest that you watch that one show that I think Jones or you've watched it, or at least watched some of it. It's on men's mental health, and it's called "Don't Call It a Comeback." Okay. Largo had a lot of issues in his life, and he had to take a break from doing his show for a little bit. And when he came back, it was "Don't Call It a Comeback," and it was all about men's mental health. And I participated in the chat on that. I wasn't actually on the screen, but a lot of what he talked about hit me right here and hit me right here. And what I really appreciated about that was the fact that he didn't just talk about what the problems were and what the symptoms were or tell you to go get some help. He gave you some of the tools that he uses personally to try to get over these issues that you could probably use as well, especially if your problem is just what a normal. I'm having a little bit of normal depression. I'm having these issues, and he talks about how you can get around those, and it helped me personally. I don't know about you, Jonah, but it helped me a hell of a lot.
Yeah, and what was funny is sometimes you find the right video at the right time, or it's like you were meant to see that, or man, I was struggling. I was struggling at work. I was struggling at home, and when men kind of handle things differently in a lot of ways, like we kind of internalize, or we have what I call the Incredible Hulk syndrome. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm going to run through the wall and crush all of you like bugs, and it's just, you bottle it up to the point where it's got nowhere to go but bad.
Exactly. I mean,
well, the other thing is, I don't know if you're married, Chris, but if you're a man and you have a family. Now, this is an old-fashioned thing, folks, but I'm an old-fashioned guy. I'm an old man, so I'm the head of the household, and everybody else looks to me as a leader. And I can't show a crack in my armor, because if I do, then I affect them, and I have to keep their morale up, and I don't want to demoralize my family because I'm having these issues, and that can be tough.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I don't know if you've experienced that in your life.
It's just me and my wife. We're a pretty good partnership right now. She's the breadwinner. It kind of goes back and forth depending on whose raise cycle works better that year. But we take turns also being the stoic rock. So there are times, where it's like, I know you're breaking. Just break. Just do it. Just come on, let's go. And, it'll be a couple weeks later and one of us will go.
That's awesome that you have that support, though. That sounds like a good girl to me, that she's willing to let you lean and then she leans and you guys are a partnership. There's not a lot of people that have that balance, or a good lady that can do that. So you're very lucky.
Oh, absolutely. And also she lets me do this, which is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And Bjorn has been so kind to put the link up to the mental health stream that we were talking about. So if you guys want to go check that out later on, there's the link right down there in the chat, folks.
Thank you so much, Bjorn.
I was talking to Grindhead Jim earlier today about this very issue, and he and I had a long conversation, and I've split that up, and that's going to help us as we chat with each other here. So let's look at part one of my little conversation with Grindhead Jim, and then we'll be right back. Okay. Here we go. Hey, Jim, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going great, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you being flexible with this.
Tonight's topic is creator fatigue and some of the things that can happen to us as creators and how it can affect our channel. So, Jim, have you suffered this, and what are some of the things that you've gone through?
Oh, absolutely. I've suffered burnout in so many different ways. Been hit burnout as a creator, of any kind. Definitely hit this hard when I was in a professional touring band. Like it manifests in small ways. Like, and we'll touch on this a little bit more later. But like in a band, I'm playing heavy metal, death metal every day. So when we're traveling from spot to spot, or when I'm at home, the last thing I wanted to do is be listening to more of the same. I needed to break away from it and escape from it. So I'd be listening to stand-up comedy and like 80s pop and anything I could do to keep my creativity within the death metal realm as pure as possible. So I just wasn't listening to as much other stuff just because I wanted to not get so tired of it. And as a content creator, it's very similar. When I first started doing the toy thing, because I've been doing content in various forms for, 15 plus years. And
some of that content was on Twitch, was it not? Where you were streaming, playing video games and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely. And that becomes a routine, a grind, if you'll permit the phrase. But depending upon what you're doing in that realm, it just kind of becomes a part of your life. When you're live streaming, and especially if you're doing something during that live stream, like playing a game or whatever, that can kind of go in the background, but you can still get burnt out on either the game or having to be in a certain place at a certain time on top of a job or whatever. When it comes to this kind of stuff, anytime you change what you're doing, like when I did in 2021, where I hadn't really done content in a while because I had horrible internet. It wasn't reliable. I couldn't stream. So I was like, okay, I want to get back into pre-produced stuff. I've been thinking about that. But then the bug bit with toy collecting, I legitimately just wanted to start collecting stuff. And you might recall that at that time, I was doing like 3 or 4 live streams a week of like 3 hours a pop. And I was putting videos out like every 5 days. Because again, it was a fresh thing for me, and I wanted to get myself out there as much as possible. You want to build the brand, but you also are just plain excited about the new thing.
For those who may not remember, those were the blue screen days when he was in the small little hotel room.
Mm-hmm. And I still have a blue screen, but it covers like almost the whole room now. I just have a curtain. There's a big room divider rod up here. I got a green one and I got a blue one, so I can kind of do what I want when I want, which is very nice. But the blue screen at the time was out of necessity. I had a clamp on a pantry shelf behind me, and I just clamped this rigid blue screen behind me, so it looked like you couldn't tell what kind of room I was in. Meanwhile, I'm in the aisle between this built-in kitchenette table and a pantry in a freaking hotel room. But no one was the wiser except my patrons, who would find out, oh, shit, this guy's living in a really small space. Which is frustrating in itself. Plus, there's the fact that I would work at that station. I would watch all my media at that station. I would do YouTube at that station. Like, I was in that chair, this chair, as a matter of fact, easily 14 hours a day minimum. Because that's
not healthy.
No, and even though this is a nice chair and it provides back support and all that, like, there was no alternative. The room wasn't big enough for me to sit on a couch or a chair. We just didn't have them. And I'm not the kind of person that wants to sit in bed. I'm like, I'm never going to be that person. I don't want to be that person, because that's even worse. Yeah. So between the hobbies, the need for entertainment, and work, you're just locked in there, which is such a big boost to my mental health, is having the same circumstances here, except I can leave this room anytime I want. And
that's a good thing.
Yeah, most mornings I can bust out my day job work, majority of it anyway, well before noon, and then just F off to the living room or go back to bed or whatever. And it's nice just to be able to get away. So it keeps the room fresh, and every time I walk in here and I see my toys, I get a little grin. It's nice. It's a nice change. So there was a certain amount of burnout just from being in this small space, cramped, being forced to watch the screens. There's a certain amount of burnout from doing too much too quickly. I hit a wall in early 22. Some would say a little bit before that, depending on who you talk to, where I just could not keep up the cadence of a feature video a week plus 2 or 3 live streams, whatever. And Toy Grinds Live became Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. That just became the thing. And that's been a way to keep the channel alive, keep my connection to the community, and make me feel like I'm producing something, but doesn't force me to do anything that I'm not prepared to do in terms of energy or preparation. So, and that's kind of where I'm at now, albeit I'm making a little bit more feature content now.
So, some of the topics I wanted to cover today, we'll start with the first one. The first one is, I don't know what to create. I've come to a wall, and I just don't know what to create. Let's talk about that for just a second.
Sure. Sometimes that can come from a couple different places, where you have multiple options and you're not sure which one is the best one to go with. Sometimes you have no idea where to start, or you get somewhere in the middle, what I call analysis paralysis, where you either have ideas, but you're just not ready to do them. Or if you're putting those on the back burner, you don't know what else to do. So you do nothing. So rather than try to figure it, you just don't. And I run into a lot of that because, if you look behind me, there's a lot of packaged toys. I am not a packaged collector. I've made that very clear. But the fact is, with especially like all of this year, for the most part, it became, because I knew I was moving. I knew that my partner was coming down, that we were going to get no new place. We'd be consolidating. And I was on the go. The first 4 months of the year is a blur, getting all that taken care of. And as toys come in, I didn't have time to depackage them and store them properly. I would just put them in a bin, and I would just buy more bins. And next thing you know, there's bins everywhere. And now, as I display all that stuff plus stuff I've acquired since, it's very clear that I got a lot of stuff to take out of the damn box. And so it's something where, well, what do you pinpoint?
Oh.
And we are back. All right. And Duchess of Darkness has shown up. I was going to type out hello, Duchess, and I'm doing that now. We will see some more of this interview later, but basically, Grindhead Jim was telling us about what to do if you don't know what to create. Have you experienced that, Chris?
Absolutely. One thing for me that I've done in that situation is just recently is that Ahsoka after show that I'm doing way after anybody. I found by creating something that I've scheduled that I have to do at a time, it's helped me kind of push through some of the block. But yeah, there are definitely times I sit at my desk, I open a few things and I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And I just stare.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying with the having to be held accountable. You schedule the show, you've got to be there. It doesn't matter. You're doing it. That actually is kind of genius in a lot of ways, because then you really can't skip out on it. You've got to honor your commitments. But I think for my experience, with the whole, you and Jim were talking about not knowing what to create. I think I have the opposite problem. I have like a bazillion ideas and I just don't know which one I want to go with. Or I'm working on one and it's not coming out like I want it to. And I'm just kind of frustrated and giving up on it.
And if you keep watching there, Jones, me and Jim kind of cover that in this interview that I did with him as we watched little segments of that throughout the show. I was telling Chris and Jones already knows this, and everybody in the chat knows it too. But I don't plan anything. I just do shit. And a lot of times right before showtime is when I'm actually producing what I'm going to actually do for that night. Jones has experienced this. Sometimes I'm actually over here uploading videos as the show's going. I actually had a time to really plan tonight's show for the most part, as far as getting Grindhead Jim interviewed and getting that cut up, because believe me, folks, this interview is a lot longer than what you're going to see on tonight. Patreons, I might upload the whole thing for you guys. So you can watch the whole thing in its entirety, because it's over 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes long. And he talks about his band days and he talks about a lot of things, not just what we're talking about here. And I had to really, really chop it up a little bit. He knew that. He's got that gift of gab that I don't have. But a lot of times what I do is whatever's on my mind that day tends to be what the show's going to be about, whether it's about toys or for late night. A lot of times, for the lack of a better thing, I'll go grab some old video from the 1950s that they showed in school or something, and we'll sit there and lampoon it.
Or this morning we're chatting on Instagram, and I'm like, why don't we talk about not knowing what to do? Because I don't know what to do.
And I'm like, bingo! Think of a title, man. Go to Chat GPS and ask it what the title's going to be.
It's the ultimate snake eating itself. It's the overdose. Like, well, I'm burnt out. What do we talk about? I don't know. Burnout? Okay. What should we call it? Burnout.
I love
there
it.
You go. But the thing is, in my mind, and I was talking about this with Jones as well, this could be helpful to other creators if they're watching. But for those of you who don't create and all you do is watch these channels, it's a little behind the scenes of what we have to go through to create the content that you enjoy watching. And I think that that's entertaining, I would hope.
Well, I mean, I think it's always fun to peel back the curtain a little bit. I mean, it's like, obviously I see a real big collection behind you there, and Bill's got quite a collection himself. And I've been known to collect a thing or two in my time. And you're excited, you buy these toys. Like, I just got this Snake Mountain. I've got a pile of He-Man stuff. I'm the biggest He-Man geek this world has ever seen. I even put it in the name of my channel, Mo2 Joneser. That's what it's all about. I got stuff I've had back here for months. You'd think I'd be chomping at the bit to open this. I paid out the nose for it, and I'm just tired. I don't want to do another unboxing video. I just don't feel inspired by them anymore. I didn't set out to do that in the first place anyway. I just kind of fell into it. And it's like, so now I'm just sitting there with my son, and he's like, well, let's just open one. And I'm like, oh, I can't just open one. I got to do a video. Otherwise, I wasted it, right? Or can I just open my toy for my own enjoyment and not put it on YouTube? Is that okay?
I went through a phase of that where I had like a backlog like crazy. Probably I could have done like 3 months worth of videos, one every day of just opening it. And I was like, well, I can't open that. That's for the YouTube. And then I just realized something's got to be for me.
Right. No, that's just it. And I do think that what I'm going to do, me and my older son came up with a creative solution. We're going to bundle. So we're doing Snake Mountain Skeleton Warriors, Dragon Blaster Skeletor. Then we're going to do all the Snake Men at once, and then half the Masterverse at once. And then once I get to the end of this, I don't know if I'm going to do toy unboxings anymore. Now that's kind of scary because that's like all I did for a while. But I don't want to do it anymore. I want to do other stuff now.
I did one video, and I'm thinking I'm going to do it again, where I did a live, like I got a case lot from McFarlane Toys of the superpowers when this last wave came out. And I'm just like, oh, the box is here. Let's just throw on a live stream, put it over my shoulder, and let's go to town. And that way I didn't have to think about it, didn't have to wait about it, didn't have to set anything up. Didn't sound great, but it was a lot of fun. And, I think there's some value in just like, chuck it. Let's not analyze it. Let's just go look pretty. Next.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's something that I'm going to do when I do this bundle deal. Is just going to be like, here he is. He squirts water. I'm moving on.
Real quick, Susudio gave me a 99-cent super sticker. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Susudio. It was a little man screaming. So that was pretty cool. And I was going to tell you, Joneser,
I responded to her.
Yeah, what you could do is instead of unboxing live, you could unbox it and then box it right the hell back up and then open it in your video later. Or you could do like old Grindhead over there and say, look, I do unboxings, but it's for Patreons only. and give a little value to your Patreon. And Chris, do you have a Patreon?
I do not. I don't. I kind of get into imposter syndrome. I'm small enough of a creator that just building enough content alone to run my channel is like a struggle. The idea of then charging people for more sounds like a commitment I'm not ready to make.
Well,
I'll be honest with you, I jumped into that too soon because I jumped in. I made a big tier. You get a comic mystery box and all these. I had these big ideas and I couldn't keep up with it. And I only had one fella in the third tier, and I just couldn't imagine if it went crazy, you know. And it was more than I could do, and I had to scale it back.
Fair.
Yeah,
and that's,
but
you know. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Bill.
Oh, it's okay. We tend to talk over each other because of latency, and I apologize for that. But what I was going to tell Jones, you know, was that you still have your Patreon there, and you do have value on that, and
No,
you do
and
have
I
your
think-
subscribers.
I do, but it's just one of those things where I just think I wasn't ready for that, you know, and I jumped in too soon. But I mean, I would suggest if for you, Chris, if you're going to do a Patreon, and I do suggest you do, start small. Maybe just do one tier and it just a simple donation, and then just build your way up to whatever crazy idea you have. Because I started off with crazy ideas, and it didn't work out for me because I just
Well,
couldn't.
you still got your subscribers, Jones. But yeah, I've got one tier on my Patreon. I've got 3 tiers for the YouTubesies, but I've only got one subscriber on that, and she's at the lowest level, which is fine. Appreciate anything. But as far as Patreon goes, you know, a lot of times I just post pictures of my toys that nobody else gets to see but the Patreons. We have the ability to hang out, before and after the show. That's one of the perks of being a Patreon. You can have perks that you don't have to work at that people will appreciate. And you'd be surprised that people are willing to pay you monthly the cost of a cup of coffee. So one day a month, instead of buying Starbucks that morning, they're paying you that $5 or whatever. And you can take the money and put it back in the channel. You can use it to buy your subscriptions that you need to buy, because yes, folks, it costs money to do YouTube. If you want to get royalty-free music, it ain't free anymore. You have to go and purchase a subscription to a site that offers it to you. I use StreamYard for lack of anything else, laziness and the fact that it's easy to use. That costs money to do what I do. So sure. And then there are those who want to see you succeed, and they will help you to do that. Did that help you, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, you talk about music. It's crazy. I use the audio library in the YouTube studio, which is fine. There's nothing that I really want there or like there. So you get something you kind of maybe like a little bit, and you move on.
Yeah, and every once in a while you just have to bite the bullet and say, okay, I know I'm going to get ID struck for this, which ID strike is not a copyright strike. It's a copyright ID, which means that if you monetize that video, whoever owns that gets to get some of your ad money off of it. If you're not monetized, it doesn't matter. But if you are monetized, it does. And sometimes, like in my case, I just say, oh, what the hell, I'm doing it anyway because I want to entertain somebody. And then you just go, okay, Patreons and channel members, you're supporting me being able to do this by supporting me through those options.
Right, and that's it. Patreon's a great way if you know you're gonna play with copyright material and stuff, that you're not reliant on monetization funds from YouTube for those things. I had heard the rumors like, oh, you can use like 5 seconds of a song and you're fine. No, you're not. Yeah, I had the bright idea.
Well,
oh, go ahead.
What I was going to say was, you talk about the 5 seconds of a song and all that. I've had this happen, and Jones knows about this as well. Sometimes what you put up is royalty free in the public domain, but some freaking rapper has a overzealous manager who comes in and claims that
because they sampled it.
Yeah, because he sampled it in one of his freaking rap videos, and in YouTube's mind, you're guilty until proven innocent. And even if you can prove yourself innocent, you're not talking to a human being, you're talking to a robot, and the robots have no emotions and don't care about you at all.
So absolutely.
It goes nowhere.
Well, I had the bright idea, like for like the Royal Rumble. I'm like, I'm gonna unbox a bunch of wrestling figures I got, you know, like, oh, our next entrance. And I had, you know, my buttons that I can't quite get. God, there they are. My buttons, and I had a button for each wrestler I was gonna unbox. So I had a 5-second clip of every entrance theme. And
WWE got your ass, didn't they?
Oh, there was, thankfully it was just an ID, like you said. So there was like, they allow you to use this, but it's theirs.
Whenever WWE strikes my ass, and I've had it happen a lot of times because we used to cover wrestling pretty frequently over here, especially on late night.
Yeah, 30-year-old wrestling or more, and they still didn't let it
go. Because Jerry Lawler sold all the rights to Memphis Wrestling to those money hungry bastards up there, and when they would ID strike it, content strike or whatever they call it, content ID strike, they would also fix it where it was unviewable in like Pakistan and India and Saudi Arabia. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, here's the other thing about music. Like, I'm a musician myself. I play drums in a band, and I got a little bit of ability to create my own music. And I have done that. And that in itself can be kind of time consuming and in the edit and you try to figure it out. And plus I'm using like the GarageBand app on my phone. Mm-hmm. So I'm like converting a piano into a bass into a guitar, and I'm trying to I'm a drummer, so I don't understand notes as much as I do rhythms and beats. So I am literally sitting here with my finger on an iPhone going like dun dun nope, dun 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 nope, dum bum nope, bumpa dee dum and it's tedious and it takes forever. But eventually, if you stick with it, you might actually get to something that sounds half-ass decent.
Well, and that's a really good way to help your burnout continue in a way. Is you're like, right. Oh no, but I got to do this thing to help the thing that I'm not doing. So excuse me, I'm going to distract myself with the thing I have no ability to do.
Well, and then what ticked me off is like I have this idea in my head of what I want the music to sound like, and I know what I want it to be, and I it's going to be great, but I just don't have the ability to make it do what I want, and then I just get mad at it, and that further adds to the burnout.
Well, I think that you shall overcome eventually. Oh, and Sue Studio down here brings up the notorious Shogun Assassin incident. Chris is probably unaware of that. That happened on a late night show as well. So a lot of times what we do as member berries, we'll show some old trailers from old grindhouse movies and stuff like that over here. One of my favorite grindhouse movies is Shogun Assassin, which is owned by Dun 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 Toho. So in the middle of showing a 30-second trailer for Shogun Assassin, I got completely blocked by YouTube.
Yep, killed the stream, everything, you were done.
No, well, as soon as I stopped showing Shogun Assassin, we came back live on the air. But yeah, for a minute there, if you weren't actually in the stream with me when it started, all you saw was a black screen. You saw it, didn't you, Joneser? The black screen of
it happened when we did the Popeye cartoon.
Mm-hmm. I showed a little bit of an old Popeye cartoon from the 1970s that was basically ripping off Star Wars, and we thought that was funny. And it was on a Popeye Spotlight show, and boom, they got us for that too. So, you live, you learn. You know what I'm saying? And Johnny says, I don't want to get decapitated again, man. I hear you down there. And what's Susudio saying here? Then, of course, there's the other stream that actually started your late night stream. Yeah, and he's had his issues over there, too. As a matter of fact, let's all say a prayer for the man. His mother just passed away, and he's in bereavement right now, which is why he's not having a show tonight. So my condolences to him, and I hope he returns and everything's going to be great over there. So, yeah. And last but not least, she says, funny that Shogun incident was a video that was all. Yes, it was. If you watch the video I made the very next day saying why I got blocked, there's a YouTube channel out there with the whole freaking trailer up. That's where I got it from. They've been up for I don't know how many years showing it, and they're not getting struck by it. So I don't know how that works. You take care there, Bjorn. Go ahead, man.
YouTube is a big mystery as much as they try to be as transparent as possible. I don't know if you saw recently or you got hit with the survey. They're like, hey, we want to know how you feel as a creator. And they're like, do you think we care about you as a creator? Like, no. No. Not at all. You have no idea who I am. I do nothing.
They must know you more than they know me, as they didn't send me one.
I got the damn survey. There was another one they sent me that was supposed to be teaching me how to determine whether content can be used or not. Wonder why I got that survey. But anyway, yeah, YouTube doesn't give a damn about us, one, and two, the whole system is broke and run by robots. There's no human beings behind it at all. A case in example, if you want some help and you go to the YouTube help, you never get a human. Ever. Oh, sure. You're talking to an AI robot in that chat, and it doesn't help you at all. And then it has the audacity to ask you, was this helpful? Yes, no.
Yeah, years and years ago, I worked at a call center, and we had online support for the website for the company I was working for. And someone jumped on the chat and went, I'm tired of these damn robots. I want to talk to a person. And the person in the call center responded, you hurt my feelings. I am robot. And immediately they're like, supervisor now. And I couldn't help but laugh because my job was to pretend to be the supervisor.
Yeah.
Because the thing about a call center is it's someone's job who's not actually anyone's supervisor to be the supervisor.
Yeah, you get the escalated call. You get all the angry people that have had enough.
Right. It broke me as a human being doing that job for a couple years.
Oh, I couldn't do it.
I couldn't. I could not do that. I could not. No, hey, Mike B.
What's your address? Where do you live? I'll come sort this out with you right now.
And it's like, nah, I'm good. Turns out we don't need to get over this on some products you bought on a website. So,
Well, guys, I'm about ready to show another bit of grindhead Jim. Are you guys ready for that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I like the first one, so let's go.
All right, here we go, folks.
So you don't really know where to start. Because I can even look in my feed and see different packages. Like maybe I unbox the Turtles next. Maybe I do some of this Spider-Man stuff. Maybe I do this Godzilla thing or the Batmobile. What is going to give me the best bang for my buck? Because it's not only what do I make the video about. Because sometimes I want to take something out of the package and not make any content out of it. But then do I have a place for it on the shelf already? Is that going to make it harder? If I depackage this Batmobile here, I got to move everything off that shelf, take the Batmobile, put it back up. Well, that's not where that Batmobile is going to go. So you start to have this thing. Like I have to shift almost every shelf behind me. Something has to move in order for it to get where it's going to go. So that's my first priority. Second priority is, can I make content out of this? And then if I can't answer both those questions to my satisfaction, I just don't do anything. Mm-hmm. So it kind of, I'm finding, at least I'm trying to find new ways to make it easier to move forward. So I'm going after low-hanging fruit around here. So that's like why the Jurassic Park dinosaurs came out, because those were like, they're just sitting there in huge boxes taking up space, and I want to see them. Yeah. So I'm going to unbox them either way. Might as well make a little bit of content out of it. And who the hell knew that those dinosaurs would be so popular? I got 400 views in less than a week, which is a lot for my channel, versus like, well, is Fangor the future of Motu Origins? You know, and you know, it just
that brings up another point, Jim. Here we go. I have plenty of ideas, but I just don't feel inspired to do them, or I don't have time, or whatever. I mean, how have you experienced that, and what are some of the ways that you've tried to overcome that?
Sure. So, for example, when I was living in the hotel room, most of the time it came down to, if I'm going to make this video, I want to do it right. And I just ran out of space to do it. I ran out of space. I ran out of time. And it just was like, all right, you know what? I'm just not going to make any more content until I'm in this bigger space. And now I'm here. Yes, I am making more content, but now I have other energy flows, different obligations. My job is a little bit different now. Mm-hmm. And it's been an adjustment, because you have to kind of pick your spots. You know, if I do get my work done early on any given day, sometimes it'll be making a video for the patrons, because they have to be the priority. They're the ones that are paying for my time. But I also don't want to make content that is exclusive to them that, you know, could be both, you know, an early stuff. Mm-hmm. So some days when I do record something, which lately I have been working on like a series where I can film it in pieces. So I'll do something for Patreon, and then I'll immediately go film this other thing, and eventually get it to a point where it's ready to go. But as far as how I get to that place where I'm battling that lack of time or energy, you have to, it's like anything else in life. You have to make time. Mm-hmm. You have to decide, because if anyone is really honest with themselves and look in that proverbial mirror, and you think about what you're doing each day, yes, there's a degree of self-care. Yes, there's a degree of relaxation one has to have, whether they're watching television or YouTube videos or having a beer or a combination of all those things, whatever your thing is. Maybe you could carve out a half hour of that away, you know, take a break from that, go work on something, and then come back to it. And that's something I've been having to do. Lately, it's been Lauren and I in the living room watching something that's not terribly engaging, you know, or it's like a repeat. We've seen it before. And I'm like, hey, baby, I'm going to go in the office and work on something. I'll come in here and I'll grab something off the shelf and I'll turn a camera on and I'll start talking about it and see where that takes me. And there's a degree of forcing oneself to do it, because my number one thing right now, the thing that is just looming over my head, is getting these shelves to look the way I want them to look.
Well, let me ask you this, Jim, because that, you know, what you said just brought something to my mind. Okay, mm-hmm. in my case, I don't know if you call it OCD or not. I do. I call it OCD. Sometimes playing, but sometimes being a little serious about it. I have this content I want to create, mm-hmm. but I have to have A, B, and C before I can even begin to start my content. And if either one of those is missing, A, B, or C is missing, I'm unable to do anything until I have a complete set of A, B, and C to start my project. Does that make sense? And have you experienced that?
Yes. Whether we're talking about from a toy perspective, not having all the toys you want to talk about, that's one aspect of it. The other side of that is all the elements of the video creation itself. Example, I've been hiding behind the fact that I haven't had these screens up for months, because when you're doing a video that's focused on a couple toys, I think Michael French was the first person that I heard say this, and it made perfect sense to me. Is if you see this vast collection behind you and you're talking about a toy, one, it's harder to see the toy. Two, people are going to be darting their eyes all behind the background. It's not going to be very productive. So you want to give them a kind of a clean space to view what you're talking about. So now I have the screens up. I don't have much excuse. But if I don't have the energy or what I would call a correct amount of time to do that, because I have to add about 20 minutes to whatever time I want to allot to make the content to set up and tear down, which is not a lot. But if your day has a lot of moving parts to it, that can happen. So it's either like, so do I have the time? Do I have the idea? And do I, set this up? If I don't have everything ready to go, like I can't do it. So I'm still working on finding a way to where it's a much quicker prospect to set up. And if I'm missing certain toys or I can't quite get the angle on something, that becomes a huge problem. Like, for example, when I first got in here, I really wanted to go after the Ghostbusters so I could get those out of the package. And while I was hem-hawing about that, you send me the upgraded shell of the firehouse, and I was like, well, now I have to finish that before I do anything.
Right.
Well, son of a bitch, that's been finished for, 2 months now?
Yeah.
They're still sitting up there.
Let me up another point now. So at this point, you and I both are doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're making excuses.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
what they are, folks. You'll hear me make these damn excuses all the time on any one of my shows. Oh, well, it takes too long to sit here and do stop motion. Oh, I don't have time to do it. And Jim is correct. I mean, these are excuses that we make for ourselves because sometimes we just don't fucking feel like doing something. And have you ever gotten to that point?
Oh, all the time. Because if I've had a particularly, because the job that I do in my day job is also content creation. I build educational lessons, videos, images, and presentations. That's my job. So it's difficult for me to then turn around and do the same thing some days, not every day, some days. Mm-hmm. And some of that can fall into the whole excuse thing. Like, well, you do it all day, you're already in that mode. How hard is it to flip the switch? It really shouldn't be. And I'm just going to be fully transparent here. If I've had a long day of work, it comes back to me being in front of this desk too long. And I miss my partner. I miss Lauren. I miss my dog. Mm-hmm. I want to get out of this room. So it's very frustrating. Like, she and I have talked about, and we're still trying to figure out where we want to start, but we're going to be doing possibly a second channel where we talk about movies we've seen. We watch, like, no joke, at least 10 movies a week, every week. Some stuff we rewatch, but most of the time it's something new to her or new to us. And we always like to talk about it at the end. Well, someone's going to be entertained by this. So we want to do that as well. But my brain says it would be easier to do it in here because the lights are here and it'd be fine. But I kind of want to do it out in the living room as a different thing. But then the excuse mill comes where it's like, well, then I got to figure out if I want to film it on the phone and I have to set up mics. The lighting might suck. And blah, blah. So then it just becomes that analysis paralysis once again.
And we are back. And I put Joneser over there and me over here because I accidentally took myself out a minute ago, but that's okay. So what do you think about that, Chris? Did any of that hit home?
Oh, absolutely. And I was kind of thinking about that, like, even beyond excuses, sometimes you'll bargain, like, you got something coming up. So you're like, oh, well, I know that that's going to happen. So when that thing does happen, I can do my thing. And then ultimately it gets there and you find then you go excuse or a new bargaining chip with yourself.
Yeah. Do you find yourself doing that, Jones? Or?
Oh, all the time. All the time. This Snake Mountain thing I've been waiting for months because I had this script written out on Notepad. I was going to do a full-blown, like, I don't know, but me playing with the toys and doing voiceovers, and the whole thing. And I was like, oh, I'll do this and the Snake Mountain will be the thing. But then I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it in the old Snake Mountain. I need the skeleton bone throne for the new one. Right? That's been sitting there for at least a couple weeks.
Well, I don't know if you saw it or not, but Jim had an interview with Mr. Home Arcade, and we'll talk about that with my interview with him here in a minute. But Mr. Home Arcade called Jim on the fucking carpet, and it was funny as hell. Jim was sitting there making some shitty ass excuse for not doing what he's been wanting to do for a long time, which is actually do videos with his toys, doing things like I do sometimes. And he just said, well, I just don't have time to do it. Or Mr. Rocks Jordan, thank you for subscribing. I appreciate you becoming a subscriber tonight. Anyway, Mr. Home Arcade called him out on it. And he said, that's a weak ass excuse, man. And I laughed my ass off. I said, you got his ass.
It's true. It is. I mean, do you want to do this or not?
Exactly.
And I will say this, that there is such a thing as burnout, and there is such a thing as, mental health plays into it. Not having all the tools that you want to do, not having it turn out right. It all plays into it. But at the end of the day, you want to do this or not?
Sometimes you're a procrastinator. Sometimes you just don't want to do something because you don't want to do it.
And Jim and I get into that here in a minute as well, and Jim has a perfect answer to that. And we'll hear it here in just a minute, but I want to go ahead and get into part 3 if you guys don't mind, and give us some more things to talk about here. So let's do part 3 real quick, and if we need to go do anything like see a man about a horse, that might be something to do.
There's no lack of opportunity if you really look at things rationally from a factual standpoint, but we're human beings, and that's not always easy to do. I
suffer from that myself. I have an actual manufacturing job. I work on a factory floor doing production. Mm-hmm. And I come home after a 10-hour day, and I don't really want to put my mind into anything. I just want to sit down and unwind and get ready to go to bed, because I got to get up and do it all over again the next day. Eat, sleep, work. Eat, sleep, work.
And then you have the almost the opposite effect, where now you have a weekend where you can do things, but it's like, I have too many things on my list. I have to prioritize something. And then by the time you figure out what you want to do, it's time to go live for your Saturday night show or your Sunday afternoon show.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's no fun, because I promised myself and I promised Lauren that I would not turn into that guy. I would not turn into a weekend warrior where I'm holed up all weekend in this room doing crap.
Yeah, that's where I am. That's where I am. And as a matter of fact, my birthday is at the end of this month, September the 30th. My daughter has already told me that I'm hers that day. We're going to play the games that we played when she was little. And of course, she and I played Cutthroat, so we're going to probably destroy her husband and my wife and get the whole time we're doing it. And that means that I'm probably not going to do a late night show that night. And if anybody's upset about that, well, kiss my ass. I am going to spend some family time. And that is something that you have to do. You have to take time to spend it with your family. But you don't want that to be a crutch either, where every weekend that rolls around, well, I'm not going to do the show because I'm going to tell them I'm spending time with my family.
And that's why TGL is on Mondays. That's the number one reason I have it there. Is there's all the reasons I came to were very simple. I wanted my weekend to remain my weekend. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, Mondays, people are just going back to work. They want to pick me up. So TGL has kind of become that for a lot of people.
That brings up another point as we start to wrap up today's interview. As a content creator, I find it very hard to keep up with what other people are doing, because I'm over here doing my thing. Do you experience that? And is there a way to get around that, or do we just all understand what's going on?
I think most of the time people just understand, and anyone who creates content now understands it. Like, for example, a lot of our core community, be it Largo, Wilhelm, a bunch of other people, they've come to me since starting to create content and said, "Oh, I get it now." And I was like, "Yeah." I used to always say this about, like, back in the day, going back to my time as a musician. I made a big deal out of the fact that I did not go to local live shows. I just didn't. And it wasn't just local bands. It would be bands from out of town, friends of mine, whatever. Because I was burnt out. Trust me, live streaming drains you quickly.
Yes, it does. Oh, boy.
It does. And it's, well, time to make the donuts again. But then when you get in the saddle, you're fine. But when you're finished, you turn the lights off and you're just like, oh, fuck. You're just ready to just like, but
well, I don't, a little behind the scenes, folks. A lot of times when we finish a live stream video, especially if it's a co-host or a guest on, as soon as we hit the stop record button, we stay on and then we talk to each other. And usually it's like, oh, finally we're done. And then we can get a chance to talk to one another. But usually a big sigh of relief as soon as it's over. And that's not a bad thing. It's just that when you're on all the time like that, once you get done, it's just like, okay, now I can relax. You, on the other hand, have always been a loner when it comes to your channel. And I understand that, not knocking it, but I don't know how you do it. You just sit there and talk to, as my wife would say, you're down there talking to yourself.
Well, it's one of these things where I think I was kind of over time trained to do it. I was born with the gift of gab. I got that from my mother, and it just kind of rolled over into a skill set, so to speak. I love having guests on the show, but I don't like scheduling that stuff. I was lucky enough to have Mr. Home Arcade on a couple weeks back, and knowing the times that he works and his willingness to come on at the time that he did was very cool. Of all the people that I've had on the show to interview or just have a conversation with, Mr. Home Arcade was really encouraging to me. He was like, come on, man, you got to open those toys. Just do it. Don't think about it. Just do it.
Oh, I laughed my ass off because he got your ass. Oh, that's a weak excuse.
And he was right. He was absolutely right. So to his credit, I came up with a concept for content around that idea. And I have a new series that's going to be called, Around the Toy Room in 7 Days. And it's going to be a weekly show where I open a minimum of 7 toys from a minimum of 3 different toy lines. And if they're not really reviews, I just kind of talk about it and go, yay, I got this toy now. So I'm going to be doing that hopefully this weekend, if not Monday at the latest, and then edit together all the little vignettes that I've filmed. And I will have accomplished getting the toys out, starting to reshape the shelf. And so I get to check 3 boxes all at the same time while still engaging in self-care, because opening a toy really is a lot of fun. And it is a kick in the ass from a good friend. Like, I consider him a good friend. And I think that had I not heard it like that, I would have probably blown off a bit, but he's so immediate in his delivery.
Absolutely.
That it's just, he's not going to take any crap.
One of the things that Joneser and I have been talking about is the fact that in the jobs that we have, the money that we're making that used to be good money is not exactly as good as it used to be. And we're having to cut back on what we're buying and what we're doing. So there's another excuse. Oh, I don't have anything new to show. Well, show what you got. A lot of times we've only seen that thing one time, and that was when you opened it up. Now play with it or something.
Right, exactly. And I think that I've leaned into thought pieces a lot more because it's something super simple to film. It's something that comes naturally to me, and I don't have to mess with anything on any shelf or any toy bin anywhere. And I will continue to do those because I think that's a big part of why people come to my channel, because they want to hear my opinion on something. I don't have any blindness to the fact that I'm not coming up with new ideas. No. I'm just coming in with a different perspective.
I was talking to Sir Clifden the other day, and I basically, and I was telling him, Cliff, you're not man-child, okay? You're not Pixel Dan. I'm not man-child, and I'm not Pixel Dan. I'm not getting the latest toy before anybody else does. I don't have some kind of a deal with the toy manufacturers where they send me some toys in the mail so as long as I give them a review or something like that. I'm buying what I buy, and I'm showing it off. But the people are not here to see me show off something that they've never seen before. They want to hear me talk about the toy that they've already got, or the toy that they're thinking about getting, and they want to see what my opinion is on it. It's the same with you. They want to see what you have to say about it. It's not that you're doing anything new or special, but the thing that makes you new special is the fact that it's you doing it and not them. They've already heard what they had to say about it.
Right. And I think that no matter what kind of content one wants to create, if you keep that in mind, that you may not be doing anything new, like even Mr. Home Arcade, the whole idea of doing machinima with toys, that's not new. But the way he's doing it and his perspective, his delivery, like that's what makes it fresh.
And once again, we get back to the point there, Joneser, that you don't necessarily have to open new toys. You can take the toys that you already have already showed off and play with them and make content out of that.
You know, it's funny you say that, Bill, because, you know, what do you think the number one thing if I get a comment on Instagram or a message on Facebook or X or Twitter or whatever the hell they call it now? What do you think it is? What's the request?
Show me XYZ again.
They want to see the vintage ones.
Yeah. See, and that's
and it's funny to me because I don't do videos on the vintage ones, and I've got practically all of them. And you know, and it's funny because there's a bazillion people who have done. You want to see a video on the vintage ones? There's a million people on there better than me that got that.
Nobody gives a shit about that. They've seen that. They want to see you do it, and that's
they want to hear me say.
They want to see
what's behind my head.
I want to see you do a video on that almost pristine freaking Fright Zone that you've got back there with a perfect puppet.
Yeah, we did that, I think, on the Motu Origins Hordak video. People flipped out because I had Lyric reach through with the puppet and grab Skeletor and pull him in. And, you know, and it was funny. Like, people gasped. They're like, oh, you're going to wreck it.
Well, what about you, Chris, man? Have you focused on some toys that you've already shown before ever on your show, or are you strictly I'm going to open this new toy kind of guy?
So when I started, I was trying to be Pixel Dan because I think we all try to emulate somebody somewhere at some point. So I thought, like, oh, I got this guy. Let me show you all the other versions of that guy so you can see him, do the comparison time. And now that I've set up this shelf behind me, nothing is ever coming off of it again because I may be caught in a plastic avalanche. But all my success, let my giant subscriber count and views impress you, has been honestly the stuff that I was dumb enough to spend more than anybody else on, or B, somehow I got lucky and did get something early. So I don't quite have the they like my opinion yet crowd. I'm hoping to find them though.
They're there. They're already there.
They're already there. I checked you out. You got 300 of them at least.
Yeah, you got 300 of them, but that's only a fraction of who's actually watching you, and that's something that you've got to remember in your mind. A lot of people don't understand that, but you know, I'm sure that you've been looking at your stats. You look at them all the time. Probably. I quit looking at mine except maybe once a week, and I think Joneser, you said you don't look at yours at all anymore. But you know, you look at who's watching you and who's new and who's subscribed. Usually, the returning subscribers is low compared to, and that's normal. Of course, I'm abnormal, so I have a lot of returning subscribers and not nearly as many new or returning subscribers, not nearly as many new viewers, because I have a more loyal fan base. But everything I do over here is not normal, so there's that. And you have to remember that. I mean, you know, there's folks watching you. You don't know they're watching you. They're quiet. They may not even be subscribed excuse me, have set up an account with YouTube, but they're watching you on
Sure.
YouTube, and they're coming and finding your videos and watching them. So
That's the thing that how the sausage is being made in this conversation is, I feel like, what kind of we're doing here. I always love looking at impressions, and I see that I get in front of a lot of eyes, like a shocking amount of eyes, and then you see it click down a little bit, and you're like, okay, only a very small percentage are actually clicking that link, and then an even smaller amount are getting there. And no offense to you, Bill, or you, Joneser, or so many people in the comments. There's so many white guys with beards. You can only stand out so much that you're constantly chasing what makes you special.
What makes you special is you.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, the white guys with beards, yeah, we're everywhere. Bearded Comic Bro is one of my favorite guys to watch, and he's another white guy with a beard. And it just is what it is. But Bill and I had talked about this before too. Is we can't be Pixel Dan. You can't be, he can't be, I can't be. You have to find out what is you. And when I got some burnout a while ago, I didn't want to do the videos, and I did this video. I want to say it was New Eternia's Barbarian He-Man, or whatever one that had the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the video not so much about the toy that time. I did something a little different. I made the video about how I found He-Man, who He-Man is, what he meant to me. I had pictures of my childhood of me holding the toys. I had pictures from in the 80s when you went to Toys R Us and you got to meet He-Man in person. And it was more of a history or a retelling. And I'll tell you what, I got those creative juices flowing again. I felt good about it. And even though the video, it got a lot of views for my channel, but it far from went viral or anything like that. But I was so proud of it. And I must have watched that one back more times than any other one I did, and I tried to throw it into some of the other videos after that. Is I'm going to give a little bit more of me in this. So we're going to talk about Ram Man, but we're going to talk about Ram Man through the eyes of Joneser. You know what I mean? So we're going to because I can't give you Pixel Dan, but I can tell you what Joneser did with his Ram Man toy when he was 5. Pixel Dan can't do that.
And I encourage you to go back to doing some of those, Joneser, as well.
Those were fun, and it did kind of revitalize me in a way, because I felt artistically, I don't even know the right word for it, but I was motivated. I enjoyed that. I think I even put in the She-Ra video a memory of me and my sister watching The Secret of the Sword together for the first time on the couch when we were little tykes. And then the stories, He-Man and his adventures with his sister, and I'm sitting here watching it with my sister, and it just felt like this cosmic, bonding experience that I never forgot.
Well, I love doing things like that, even if it's doing something emotional. Like I my review of the Mythic Legions Mephitor, I talked about moving to where I live now as a little kid, and my parents got me Stinkor, and it made everything in the moving van smell like hell. So, I've got that very personal connection to Stinkor, and this is homaging that, and I did that, and that was really cool. But not everything I do has that, and I need to remember you don't have to fit a square peg in a round hole to make it work. But sometimes it's just like, I learned how to make letters scribble, so let's throw that in and see how that works. And so there's always kind of fun ways to challenge yourself, but if you're like, oh, this is who I am now, you'll find a new way to burn yourself out.
Well, one of the videos that I watched today, because I just found you today, to be honest with you, Chris, was the video that you did on the Batwing. And I thought that was fun, because basically you were like calling out people who were talking bad about the Batwing and then talking about what you liked about it.
Yeah, and it's funny because there was a think piece where, you know, everybody's like, you're a real idiot if you want to spend $250 on a Batwing. And there were two of them were creators that I know and talk to a little bit, and, you know, they've been really cool and encouraging. And I'm like, hey, would it be cool if I mention you guys by name and how you're the wrongest wrong and wrong down? And they're like, yeah, no, that's cool. So that's nice that we have this community. I think that's the coolest thing about getting into YouTube sometimes is the community, like the Toy Network that, you know, got me here today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. And again, that video had a technical challenge because I did it live and I had a camera turn in the middle of it. So I started talking over here to a camera I had set up here. And then I'm like, but they're wrong. And I was able to nail live the turn to the camera. And that was just one of those, like, I wanted to go, all right, stream's over. I nailed it.
Right. High five moment.
Yep.
Well, that brings up a good point. And we're going to go back to Grindhead Jim for a minute because he and I got into pushing through things when things don't go exactly right. So let's go ahead and watch the final bit of my interview with Grindhead Jim, since we're getting almost to the 1 hour 30-minute point, so we can get back to us talking. So let's watch this real quick, and we'll be right back, folks, and enjoy.
I like to think that when I get around to doing that stuff myself, because I've been talking about doing that for 2 years. Like
I've heard you. And of course, I've got several different projects that have been sitting on the back burner. And once again, here come the excuses.
Right.
I don't have A in order to make B happen, so C can happen.
Sure.
And then therefore I'm putting this on hold for just now. A perfect example of that is I have a video that's been in the works for 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called the Desires of Evil. And it's a 2-part, like a old Golden Book video used to be. And the first part is going to be a basic storyline from one of the coloring books, and the other one is another storyline from a different coloring book, but they kind of blend together, so they make a 2-part story. And one of them is Tila becomes the bride of Skeletor against her will, of course. So I had to buy a wedding dress to put on her and the whole bit. Well, I got all that, but I don't have all of the little set dressings that I feel like I need to make those scenes pop. So the whole storyline, I started filming the first part of it and never got around to getting into. Well, actually, it wasn't. It was the introduction that I filmed. I haven't even got into filming the 2 actual parts because I don't have the materials that I feel like I need in my OCD mind to make them work properly.
Yeah.
You know, we experience those kinds of issues, and how do we get around those? Well, the thing is, you get off your lazy ass and go buy the shit you need and get it done when you can get it done. Or
you push past it. It's basically like in filmmaking, for example, and I'll use Adventures in Game Chasing as the example because we saw this all the time. Mm-hmm. Where the script said one thing, but the budget said something else, and somewhere in the middle was how do we fix this? And to get from point A to point B, to get the same point across, you had to improvise dialogue, change what camera angles you're shooting at to hide the seams, if you will. And I think that a lot of those parts in the film that I could point out at least 6 times we had to change something on the fly just because for whatever reason, it worked on the page. It wasn't working on camera.
Right.
And the same is true with YouTube. You have to just kind of say, okay, I don't have this, that, and the other. How can I get around that? How can I do this and still convey what the story I'm trying to convey without all the little bangs and bobbles and details? And there are some things that you're not going to be able to get around. Like if you're going to put her in a wedding dress, well, you need that wedding dress, but you have that. So what do? You know, I'll give you a great example. If you're missing, say, the altar for the for the ceremony, well, just take the damn archway mountaintop off of the New Snake Mountain, put it on the ground, take the door off. Mm-hmm. There's your altar. You just give it a little dressing with whatever you have. That would be a perfect little gazebo thing.
Right.
Stuff like that. You know, like use what you have rather than lamenting what you don't. And sometimes that will work. And even if it doesn't work, it may inspire you to go in a slightly different direction that is easier to get to.
You know, what I've found a lot of times is that even though it's not exactly what you pictured in your mind, it comes out sometimes even better. And
exactly.
And falling back to, as you know, I'm a amateur magician. I dabble a bit. And sometimes when you're performing a magic trick for a spectator, you're screwing
Something
up.
goes wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. But they don't know that you're screwing up. So the best thing in the world for you to do is to keep on going like it was part of the whole act. They think it is. They're not going to know otherwise unless you sit there and tell them. And I know a lot of amateur musicians, they go, "Oh, I screwed up." Well, now you just told them, ass. You sit there and you just do it, and they don't know that you screwed up at all. They thought that was all part of the act.
The same can be said for being a musician, right? Sometimes you'll drop a stick or you'll play a beat in the wrong place. You have to kind of create a pattern to get yourself back to the main song. Mm-hmm. Sometimes as simple as giving a quick look to a guitar player or something. So if you never visibly react to a mistake, like live streaming, that shit happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And like stuff's going off, or like sometimes I've gotten text messages of really dastardly stuff. Things that I have to deal with like right away, but it's like, well, it's going to have to wait another half hour till I'm done, with XYZ, or, like one time I forget which show it was, but I got a message saying like, "Hey, this payment didn't go through. It was something I needed, like groceries or something." And I'm talking and I'm over here with my peripheral changing the card or paying the bill. You have to roll with the punches. And that's just not a live thing. That's a recorded thing too. Stuff happens during shooting, and you have to start from a certain point and do a retake, or you have to rethink on the fly how to accomplish what you're doing, because otherwise you're wasting effort.
A la Eduardo the Rooster.
Yeah, that was one of the most genius things I ever saw.
Here the train goes by. I think earlier in the interview, the train went by. Neither one of us said a word. We just kept going.
Yeah, and you have to be able to roll with these things, because otherwise, that house of cards falls. Because Absolutely. It's just how it goes.
Well, I'm gonna wrap this show up, or this interview rather, folks, with Jim, and get his final thoughts on this. But I think one of the main things we got out of this is that when you feel like you're in a creator slump, a lot of times it's something that you just need to push through, and things will tend to work out, and not to make excuses. Now, is being with your family an excuse? No, but you can make it an excuse if you're doing it far too often. Yes, it's okay to take a break, but it's not okay to just quit. Exactly.
And the one thing I wanted to bring up here is that don't overschedule yourself when it comes to your content. Have something that's regular, and then put stuff out when you're ready. That doesn't mean drag your feet, but it does mean don't put so much pressure on yourself, because I think the more pressure you put on yourself, the easier it is to get burned out, because you're scared. You're not going to meet that deadline. You say, well, I can't meet the deadline, so screw it. I'm not going to do it. So where you can, compromise your deadlines, and where you can't, give yourself grace. That's the biggest thing.
Absolutely. And my final thought before I stop this interview with Grindhead is that if you don't see Grindhead or I in your chats, doesn't mean that we're not there. We may be lurking, or we may not be there because we're busy doing other things. But don't think that we don't care about you.
It's true. Yeah, I lurk in a lot of live chats, and I never tell anybody I'm there. And I'll watch videos when I can at weird hours and weird combinations. I may never comment on them, but I love a lot of people's stuff, but I got to make time where I can. And a part of that means just going to watch it and enjoy it and not say a word. And that's okay to do too.
That's it. Well, thank you for being here today, Jim. And I hope to see you again soon on the show.
Yes, sir, brother.
Always good to see Jim.
Things because Jim has a way with words. There you go, Jones. You got me again. I thought I was going to get you this time. But
Never.
yeah, he has the ability to really touch on some points that and help you to understand. And the thing that really got me was, I'm sitting here going, well, I don't have a bedroom set. This is in my mind to use for the 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 bride story that I want to do. And he's like, push through that shit. Figure out a way to do it without that.
Absolutely, and sometimes, if you put yourself in a corner, you can actually come up. Nobody wants to be in a corner, but you can come up with some really, truly creative ideas if you just put yourself, back against the wall and do something like that. Like he was talking about with the arch on the new Snake Mountain. It's brilliant. What a really good idea.
Yeah, I was working on some backgrounds for some Dick Tracy stuff I wanted to do. And just sitting there with some construction paper and a ruler and a marker, I came up with this. And I'm like, okay, we got Tracy's office, little interrogation room, pretty cool. How are we going to get the light to turn on? I mean, it's stupid, but it almost looks better.
No, it's not. It's actually it's ingenious, man.
I thought it was.
And you're talking about fixing that to make it better. Why? It's already good enough. I mean, you could, but I mean, you could go with that. I mean, come on.
No,
man.
I see, because you were talking about you got the scene with the bride and you need the suite, and you need all the other stuff. Well, I've got this. Here's the other thing. Like I go rolling with an idea. And I got a, courthouse scene. I got an alley scene. I got a warehouse scene. So I got other stuff I got to draw and figure out how to do. And I'm going to do it. And I've got it in my mind how I want it to be. But I was like, oh, it can't be some crappy cardboard paper with a marker. Well, it turns out it can.
Yeah. That's the whole point. And sometimes it needs to look like that. Like, for instance, I've come to the conclusion that sometimes in my so-called stop motion videos, my hand could be moving the figure around in there, and you might accidentally see it a couple of times. And that's okay. As a matter of fact, that may even make it funny or more enjoyable. Kind of like a long time ago, and people may not know this, but BBC tried to do Thomas the Tank Engine way before they actually did the Thomas the Tank Engine show, and they were doing it live, and the little electric train that was Thomas the Tank Engine jumped the track, and a hand reached in and put it back on the track.
Nice.
Well, I just think of like toy commercials when I was a kid. It wasn't someone stop motioning. It was a kid's hand going, "Not this time, you're gonna go down." And so the only time I've done any like skit with action figures, it's just me sliding things around, doing voiceover.
It's not a bad thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's something that I've got to get over. And Brushstroke was the one that told me this, and thank you, Brushstroke. I got all hung up on the background scenery and whether it looked good enough or not. And I even got to the point where I was getting scenes from the internet and then superimposing my figures over that. And Brushstroke was like, I liked it better when you were balling up pieces of paper and stuff like that for rocks.
Right. Well, I mean, that's how play was when you were a kid. You saw your hand. You used what you had. You had cardboard furniture or whatever. You know what I mean? You did what you could. I remember, and this is a good lesson in this. Like I when I was little, I wanted a Castle Grayskull, and I have one. And I remember my dad got a big cardboard box and a marker, and he drew a skull face on it, and he cut out a little square so we could push it down. There's a little drawbridge. Little He-Man can go through there, and made a little tower with a window. And we had a cardboard Castle Grayskull that I could play my little He-Man adventures with. And I loved that thing.
When I was a kid, I had G.I. Joes, and I had some of the bloodiest battles possible thanks to my red crayon. And, the best part was, so pretty soon it's like, all right, reset. So you run to the bathroom, you're washing the crayon off, and it's forever stuck in some creases. But, that crayon came in handy.
Right. Too bad you didn't use like a red Play-Doh or something. Would have cleaned up easier.
That would have been helpful 30 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. Little kids, especially when I was a little kid, we never thought ahead too far.
No, not at all. But I think that's kind of the joy of it, or the fun of it, and like there was one time I was down here and I was making voices with my little men and doing my thing, and my wife come downstairs and she's like, really? Like, you're going to appear on camera in front of everybody on the internet and you're going to do that? Aren't you embarrassed? And I was like, no, not even a little bit. Like this community, I can be me in front of this community and I'm not worried about it. Now, I probably couldn't go to work and be the big, bad, tough supervisor anymore. But over here I can be me, and within the people at work that really know me, they know I'm a big cupcake anyway. But
right, like I've done 3 whole shorts, and 2 are figures, but 1 is me doing voiceover for my 1 action figure bit. And I was just having so much fun, I just turned on my phone and recorded a little bit so I can sit there and go, ah!
It's awesome.
And you've experimented with shorts. How did that work out for you? Did you get some subscribers off it?
Not at all. Shorts have been terrible for me, but I have people in the network I play with that's all they do, and it kills for them. So, it's finding the right venue for what you're doing. And I don't think shorts is it for me, but it is for others.
I agree. And I've experimented with shorts a little bit, but what I've found is the few subscribers that I do get off of it are not long-term subscribers. And that's what I'm looking for.
I can't speak for you guys, but I know ultimately in my dream, I want to sell out so bad. If a toy company could knock on the door and go, hey, do you want to review our products? Yes, I do. Go ahead. Give me the plastic. I am ready and willing.
Well, that comes with a caveat, my friend.
Yeah,
it does. And the thing is too, and I know a couple people who have had that experience, and it doesn't always work out the way that you would want it to. For one, they're going to want a favorable review,
right? Absolutely.
And for two, I want to say Adam had something like that where someone approached him and they shipped him something and he was supposed to get it shipped for free. And then he got it, and then he got a bill from the freaking post office for it.
In Canada.
Yeah.
And we both know how much it costs to ship stuff.
Yeah. And then he messaged the toy company that sent it to him, and they weren't touching it. And then he messaged the post office, and they weren't forgiving it. And
yeah, and that's half joke. I will always admit, like, again, if somebody turned around and said, would you do it? I would probably get burned at least once. But, on some level, I also believe, early on in this, like, have your values and stick to them. I've had people come up and I've talked to them and they're like, hey, I think we should work together. I have this in with these people. And then I got to know them a little bit and I'm like, we're not on the same page value wise. So, don't completely sell yourself out just to make things better for or what you think is going to be better.
Well, here's the thing too. I'm sorry if I cut you off there, Bill, but I got to say this while it's fresh in my mind. You were saying when you start the show or you start on camera, you turn on the who you are in front of the camera, but I'm willing to go on a limb and guess that who you are in front of the camera is really who you are, just turned up to 10.
Well, it's definitely a version,
Right. Because it's somewhat of a playing a character for the camera and somewhat of a, this is who we are as people, but where it's amplified. It's trying to be more entertaining. It's trying to be a little more up. I can't speak for you guys, but I can tell you, if you guys were to meet me in the world, off camera, in the street, you're going to get pretty much the same silly idiot you see before you now.
I agree. I think you're right. And of course, people see this in me as well. You know, when I start the show out, hey everybody, I hope you're having a good evening. This is Bill. Welcome to Weird Fantastic Toy Adventures or whatever. But then I move on to me being me, and everybody knows how I am. I tell it like it is, and sometimes I say a wordy dirt every once in a while, and we just move on and talk about what's on our mind. What about you, Chris? I mean, you're the one who says that some of that's not you, but I think we got you nailed, dude. Some of it is you, man.
You know, and to the point, I have played characters on my channel. The whole Chris Plastic thing started out in that Royal Rumble video. I thought it would be funny to do a bit where it's a backstage interview. You know, so I first put on, you know, a bad, it's over there, Denver Broncos luchador mask, where I'm Tophin Mask, you know, Christopher in mask. Brilliant. And I decided to interview the cocky former wrestler, the Fantastique, Chris Plastique.
Oh, nice.
And so I green screened it, so it's me interviewing myself, and, you know, I couldn't find a decent looking mic, so I'm holding a lightsaber upside down. You know.
Awesome.
Stuff like that. And so every once in a while I will do full character stuff. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's usually an exaggerated version of myself, or even giving my inner monologue life. I don't know how many times I've considered, when I get a toy that I've been waiting a long time for, to just record myself running back and forth in the living room going, "It's here!"
Right.
Because that's how I feel, but I just haven't done it yet.
Idea, man. Thanks for the idea, man. I'm stealing that one.
Well, you're a wrestling fan, obviously. So what I was getting at with the character thing is, like, you know, you see like the Mr. McMahon character, or Stone Cold Steve Austin character. I mean, this is who those people are in a sense. I mean, obviously they're turning it up to 10 and playing a character for the camera, but I bet you Mr. McMahon has probably come out in some contract negotiations backstage a few times. You know.
No doubt. Yeah. How much was Attitude Era Vince McMahon the Letcher turns out to be unfortunate reality.
Right.
I wonder about that, because he some of the shit that he came up with during that time was kind of borderline.
And you're going to sacrifice my daughter on the altar of the Ministry of Darkness. And, you know,
it turns out only Trish Stratus can make me feel better. You know?
That and some of the crap that got nixed because they're like, "No, Vince, you cannot do that."
Are you kidding me? What got nixed? Mae Young gave birth to a hand. I mean, at what point do we stop this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to be wrapping up the show here shortly, folks. But what I want to do real quick before we get our final thoughts here, we have a very, very good friend of ours who's been sick for a long, long time, and that's Rolo. And a lot of you guys have been wanting to know about Rolo, and you've heard my response to that. This is not going to be anything new, but I asked Jim about that while I was interviewing him, and he was kindly able to maybe put my mind at ease a little bit about that, even though we don't know anything. So I thought I would share that little bit with everybody real quick towards the end of the show. And I might even let Figuratively Speaking come in and talk real quick to us before we go as well. But let's watch what Grindhead Jim had to say about Rolo. Well, Jim, we both have a mutual friend, and we haven't heard from him in a while, and that would be Rolo. And a lot of people, especially over here at Weird Fantastic Toy Adventures and in the chats, have been wondering what we know about him, because he seemed to have disappeared on us, man. Do you have any insight?
Yeah, I last heard from him a couple months back. He was in the hospital at the time. It looked like he was going to be in the hospital for an indeterminate period of time. And the words he used were, "It's in God's hands." Now, I've heard nothing from Marcos or Barely about the situation, and I would expect that if something went extreme in one direction or the other, I would have heard from one of them or from Rollo himself. But that's not been the case. So while I always hope for the best, if the worst had happened, I kind of feel like we would have heard from one of these peoples in the circle. But I know that either one of them would reach out if something had happened. That worries me. But at the same time, if he's in the hospital getting care, that's the best place for him to be. But that also limits his ability to be in contact and things of that nature.
Now, I texted you just the other day about this very issue.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned something to me that kind of made me understand, but maybe this is what's happening. Do you remember that, Jim?
Yeah. I don't wish to speak for Rollo. I want to be clear, this is just kind of my thought process, knowing the man as I do. If he's still in the hospital, he may not want to be in contact or return as a matter of pride until he's back to whatever 100% is for him. Because he's done that in the past for shorter periods of time, and that's normal for him. So I like to think that he's just biding his time and focusing on getting better, so that should he be able to return later on, that'll be in all of its, former glory, so to speak. And I hope that that's the case, because, I totally understand where he's coming from on that kind of a thing, if that's the case. And I hope that that's all it is. I hope he's just getting care, he's focused on that, and then he'll come back with a vengeance, so to speak. Because, of course, I do love the guy to death, and we're all pulling for him, and we want nothing but the best and health for him as well.
Well, thanks, Jim. I appreciate you giving us that little update on Rollo, and I hope this helps you guys in the chat as well. And feel free to share this around if you want to, so that others can find out. And once again, thank you for being here today, Jim, and we'll see you next time. Okay, bud?
Absolutely. Take care of yourself, brother.
All right, man.
Oh,
Maniac,
you're muted.
Mexico.
Oh, there you are.
I'm sorry. I said if anybody's wondering who Rollo is, that would be Masters Maniac Mexico. But anyway, I wanted to share that because everybody's been concerned about him. So he's apparently still in the hospital. And he's been in the hospital now since June.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. That's a long time for him to be quiet.
Absolutely. And I thought I would let figuratively speaking come in real quick here towards the end and say a few words to everyone. So I'm going to bring him on in here.
Hey, John.
Are we hearing John? John, unmute yourself. Yeah, you're unmuted. How's it going, John?
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, everyone in the chat too. I'm glad that topic of discussion actually came up. Rollo's been on my mind for a couple of weeks now and haven't been able to see him anywhere. So I'm hoping all is well with him, and I know he's going through.
All right. Yeah, I'm glad to be able to help you on that matter there, John. And you're a little choppy there, so if I'm talking over you, I apologize. But it's almost time to feed those ducks, so it's time for everybody to say their final piece. So I'll start with you, Chris, and then we'll go Joneser, and then me, and figuratively speaking.
Hey, thank you so much for having me tonight. This was a blast. I really like getting a chance to just talk anything with anybody on YouTube. It's a wonderful time. So thank you so much. I'm at SPP Toys pretty much anywhere, so check me out. Of course, check these guys out. If you know they're here, you're here. Like them, subscribe, do all that great stuff for them.
John?
Hey, nice to see you, John. Nice to meet you, Chris. Always a pleasure, Bill. I don't got a whole lot to say. I'll be putting videos up again at some point once I get past my burnout funk nonsense and get over myself and get back to work. So that's about all I got.
Well, I'm over there on Instagram, folks. I may not be very chatty, but I'm not a social butterfly by any means when it comes to that. But social media, as you know, Mike V and Rickster, if you're listening in or watching a replay, I tend to lurk, and sometimes I'll drop in and bring my bomb and then drop back out again. You never know. And John, did tonight's show help you any as far as churning out some content? Looks kind of froze down here. I think we lost John. Yeah, he's not there. So I'm gonna take him. There he is.
I can hear him, but he ain't moving.
I'm getting back into doing more videos here soon.
John, we're not hearing you very much. Kind of choppy, and you're froze. So I'm going to take you out for right now, and you can hang around after the show with us. We're going to do that, but now it's time to say good journey to everyone. Yeah, Susudio says, I guess that's it. Yeah, that's kind of it. And of course, join me tomorrow at noon, and we'll have a Sunday hangout doing more of the same, talking about toys. So good journey, everybody, and take care.
Special thanks to the channel supporters. Without your help, these adventures would not be possible. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's adventure, please hit like, subscribe, and share the video.